Hello, everyone, and today we are going to go over more of the prospect options at just the first three picks of 30, 62nd, and 94. I'm going to go over four prospects per pick here, so there's going to be 12 overall. Could potentially take a while, so yeah. Now at 30 with the first round pick, the first one that I have here is Connor Williams because to me he's the top tackle in this class. Some will argue that he's a guard. I think he's a tackle, but the fact that there's that question, he may drop down to 30. And he's very sound in his technique, and he's extremely good at mirroring his rusher. He has a lot of athleticism to his game. He's more athletic than he is powerful, so he's not an overwhelming run blocker, but he's very efficient in the run game at the same time. He'll never maul you, but he will do his job, and he's solid, essentially, is what I mean by that. He has very few mental errors, and he's extremely efficient in pass protection. The zone blocking scheme we run would almost be perfect with his amount of athleticism. I know he came in a little undersized at the combine, but I think that was just a show off his athleticism. He'll probably be somewhere between 300 and 315, like come actual training camp. I would imagine around that. He he has he had the down year though. That's why some people are putting him all the way down where we are at 30. He had the down year. He had kind of a knee injury thing lingering, but that should be fine, all healed up. And if we were talking for the 2016 draft, this guy would have been top 5, top 10 pick easy. So to me, he's easily the top one on the board. Next, I have Colton Miller. He's another tackle. This is more of assuming Mike Remmers would go to right guard for both of these guys. Now, Colton Miller, he's a very solid all-around player, and he is roughly the same size of Connor Williams, although Miller's 2 inches taller at 6'8", and we all know that height can sometimes be a problem for tackles as it's easier to bend around them or get under them, essentially. But he's an all-around player. He really moves people in the run game, and he does have a tendency to get beat on the inside in the run games at times, though. In the run game at times, though, he is athletic and able to really move up the field with pretty much ease. He's played on the right side before. He's played right tackle most of his career, so him going back to right tackle wouldn't be that big of a deal. So once again, like I said, this is assuming Mike Remmers is being the right guard and not the right tackle, depending on how they view him. Now, but yeah, like he is able to really get up the field with ease, and on some of these plays he can get overpowered with him being 6'8" and a little bit lighter at 300 pounds. So he can get overpowered at times. In pass protection, he's a solid player. He has very quick feet. He has a great anchor and will underset from time to time and have a player just run right around him, which is what I was talking about with the bending, and it's not good. You can beat him with speed sometimes. But all these problems are mostly fixable. Like anything that comes with him just being 6'8" can't be fixed. But if he's there, it's pretty hard to say we can't pick him because he's one of the better players, especially for where we are going to be picking. Now, my third player, 3 and 4 are kind of interchangeable depending on preference. I like Will Hernandez at 3 here, and because he will really go after you in the run game, and he carries his weight very well, even though he's like 330, 340. He's going to be in that range. He does carry his weight very well, and so he can pull out in front of backs and pulls on screens, and he does very well in that. Although he does have some pass protection deficiencies, mainly he will tend to grab defenders like right here, just on the shoulder pads, because his feet aren't the quickest, and he kind of has a weird panic way of doing with that. But he is great in run blocking and a slightly below average pass protection makes him relatively balanced, but obviously you would like that to be a lot better, but he can get better at that. It's just his hand work essentially, and his feet do need to work a little faster, but it's nothing that you can't work with and build on. And now my fourth one at 30 is Isaiah Wynn. He played left tackle last year at Georgia. He's gonna be a guard, and it's hard to argue that he will be a tackle at only 6'2", 302. And he isn't a mauler in the running game, but he just stonewalls people and he steals them all the time. So he creates large holes consistently, although he's not attacking them and he's still going like 10 yards down the field. It's very efficient and smooth, but and he does similar things in pass protection where he just stops them right in their tracks on a consistent basis. He's a pretty solid athlete, and there is no worry about him getting to the second level. Where there is concern is he does seem to struggle with hitting moving targets on the second and third levels, and more so just gets in the way instead of actually blocking. And because of that, as long as he is in a power run scheme, he has the versatility to be both a guard and a center. And I think he is in that late first to early second round talent range. And I think he is physically capable of playing in the zone blocking scheme. But my concern is that doesn't entirely develop where he kind of gets this seek and destroy thing on where he's attacking at the second and third level. So, yeah. He's a very versatile player essentially. But I do think he needs to get a little better at that. Armani Watts at 62. This is the second round draft pick. I really like Armani Watts. He's a safety / nickel corner to me, and he isn't afraid to come up and hit someone, even though he is smaller at 5'11", 205. He doesn't really give up on plays, and like he has a very high motor. He's an average tackler. Yeah. And coverage is where he really excels, though. He has very fluid hips, especially for a safety, and I really think he could possibly play nickel corner. He's a playmaker and he can cause some turnovers. He has 17 combined interceptions and forced fumbles in his career. Now, I think you can use this guy a lot like Tyrann Mathieu is used down in, I guess, Houston now, but how he was used in Arizona. I really think you can use him in a lot of the same ways. And given the need that Minnesota has at the nickel corner spot right now, it could be useful, especially if we're talking about a third safety. And then you can really start moving Harrison Smith around. Because something I've really wanted to do with Harrison Smith was because I feel like Robinson is being misused in that weird elephant role they put him in on those third down double A gap packages. Where I'm thinking if we had a third safety who could cover, imagine if we put Harrison Smith next to Eric Kendricks, and then in that elephant role we move out Barr, and then we just wreak havoc essentially on the entire league. And something to think about. If the safety is there and can cover, Armani Watts would let you do that. Possibly he moves down the nickel. It's a lot more options at that point. And you are talking about potentially this guy is gonna overthrow Sendejo as the starting safety next to Harrison Smith mainly. Braden Smith, he's a right guard / right tackle. He's played both for Auburn, and he's extremely good in the run game, and he's kind of average in pass protection, although he can be thrown by some stunts and twists that leave him with a speed disadvantage. And he is a pretty good athlete. He can get out there in front of people, and he can really pull on screens. He can pull for tosses. He can move up the field, and he can do what they want to do in that zone scheme. And he has the size and is a good enough athlete to make that switch out to right tackle, well, back to right tackle, because he's 6'6", 303. He's a little bit on the leaner side in terms of weight, but a lot of that is muscle weight, and you see that just in his build. So I wouldn't be afraid of that. This guy, and it would really allow you to use Remmers wherever you think he's best fit. And I do think there is a possibility they go back-to-back offensive linemen. So let's say they go and get Connor Williams in the first round, who was my first guy. And if you don't want to move him to the right side, because he's always been on the left side, although I've seen a report or two that said the people he's training with, he looks a lot more natural on the right side. So, I mean, that would fix a lot of problems if we could just put him at right tackle if we got him. But if you didn't want to move him over to the right side and flip all his footwork, you could potentially leave Connor Williams on the left side and he can replace Nick Easton at left guard, and then you can kind of decide between Braden Smith and Mike Remmers which one's a better guard, which one's a better tackle, potentially, if that was an actual thing. Which I'm kind of a fan of, but at the same time, might be a meh. You could probably upgrade a little bit better there. And this is, again, if you don't get the tackle in the first round and they trade out and stuff, I have Tyrell Crosby on here, who, being at Oregon, he doesn't get into a three-point stance much at all, but he's very athletic. He's 6'5", 320 pounds, and he isn't asked to block for very long usually, but he has very strong hands and is a hell of an athlete, especially for his massive size. Crosby looks every part of your franchise tackles, but is inconsistent in the run blocking, and he does have a tendency to overpower rushers when in pass protection. And he can get to the second level, and I question his vision as well because he kind of struggles with hitting the moving targets. And I think this is more of a developmental guy, but considering what's in the league at tackles, this is a guy who I think is probably more of a fourth round talent that it will be drafted in the second or the third round, pretty much based off what's in the league, which is not much. So his raw physical talent will make him this high of a pick. It's not his it's his athleticism and his size that will make him this high. It's nothing about the technique and how efficient he is. It's about what you can mold him into, which to me, a lot of the tackles in this class are like that. That's why I think if they want to go tackle, you have to consider trading up for said tackle, because Tyrell Crosby might be your next choice. And then lastly, we have Frank Ragnow here for this second pick. He's very powerful and can remove people in the run game, creating large lanes right up the middle. He played center. I think he will be more of a guard. In pass pro, he is solid, and he doesn't see many counters from defenders due to how the offense is set up. He's very active and looks for work, though. He is very effective at chipping when needed to help out one of the other two guards when he was playing center. And although he isn't the most athletic, some teams may shy away from taking him because of that. And a lot like Wynn at times, he has a lot of versatility, I think. And Minnesota's already met with him a few times. He's 6'5", 319. He looks like a guard. He's a big center, essentially. To me, he's a guard. I think he could survive in the zone scheme, although I think he's more of a power scheme kind of runner, or not runner, blocker. So that's that for the second round pick. Now we get to the third round pick, which is going to be the last pick I go over for tonight. And at the top of my board here, Anthony Averett out of Alabama. He's a corner, and he's a very solid all-around player. He's efficient in both man and zone coverage. He's better in press man coverage, which Minnesota loves to run. He does have a tendency to overrun some of the routes, such as the comebacks and the curls. And he is a very solid tackler and is willing to sacrifice himself in order to set the edge as a corner, which you can't say for everyone. And he isn't all too grabby, and he's pretty fundamentally sound. And this guy, I think if he falls to the third round, they have to take him because his hips are still good enough to be a nickel corner, which, like I said, unless you get a guy like Armani Watson, if they view him as that weird Matthew hybrid corner safety, nickel corner safety kind of guy, then this would be one of the next guys. And then we have Quentin Meeks out of Stanford at 6'2" and 204 pounds. He's a junior. I think he's a better zone than man corner, but he has good enough hip fluidity where you might be able to coach him up if you needed him to do more man than what he would be initially asked to do coming right out of college. So he'd be a little bit of a project, but and he could be a better tackler as he goes with his shoulder way too much, which results in broken tackles. And in some tackling situations, he does seem a little timid and won't always attack. Although he's solid enough in coverage to where you say that could maybe just be a pure zone safety. I do think he could potentially be a nickel corner, although he might be an outside corner, but he has talent and he's very physically gifted. So I think this would be one that would be more of like you need to develop him a little bit into what you need him to be. That's why I have Anthony Averett above him. These next two people could view as an overdraft, but they are both the three tech defensive tackles. And I know some people will be like, well, we just got Sheldon Richardson. I think Sheldon is a 1 year rental. I don't know if they're going to re sign him. I don't know if they can afford to re sign him, which is why I would say maybe you look to draft a three technique in the third to fifth round range and try to develop one, or Jaleel Johnson hopefully steps up. One or the other. But my first one here is Nathan Shepard out of Fort Hays State. And that's one that people might think is a little bit of an overdraft. He is 6'5", 300 pounds, and he can blow up a play right from the snap with his quickness and speed off the snap. If you get his hands on him, he is fairly easy to control in the run game, though. And like I said, you wouldn't have to start, though, because you have Sheldon Richardson. So you're pretty much putting him in a redshirt year, I think, and where you can really teach him things like that. And he does give an occasional extra shove, which can turn into eventual penalties at the NFL level. He's very aggressive, but does a lot of guesswork and doesn't make all the plays he should make just because he shoots the gap instead of getting his hands on the lineman and reading into the backfield. And he's very raw, but he has a lot of potential. And he kind of had to shoot gaps like that and do all the guesswork just because at Fort Hays State he was constantly getting triple teamed essentially. So what you saw a lot there was just he was trying to make plays, and if you could get three sets of hands on him, you could really do what you wanted with him. But he's very athletic, he's very explosive, and you can really mold him into what you need. And I think he's more of an early to mid fourth round talent, but in the late third round stages, we won't be able to get him in the fourth round, mostly because we don't have a fourth round pick, and unless you trade down or move back up into that, and all that deal. And then I have Justin Jones out of NC State. He's 6'2", 312 pounds. To me, he has a very intriguing skill set. He's very athletic for an interior defensive lineman and shows burst and quickness off the snap. He can blow up plays in both the run and pass game. He's very inconsistent, however, and that will hurt him pretty much now as we're getting closer to this draft time. But he never gets overpowered in the run game, and he does struggle at times in the pass game when hands get on him. But he has the potential to become a very good player, and I honestly see a lot of Geno Atkins in him. He's roughly the same size, and he moves very similar to him, and we have Mike Zimmer. So you add everything together, I think there's a high chance of us getting this guy right here, Justin Jones out of NC State. So although I know some people will be like, well, if you can get his hands on him, like I said with Nathan Shepard here, redshirt year, you can teach him things to do with his hands to kind of, get rid of those things. Although he's a little undersized, but he has, in terms of height, he is still 312 pounds, and he can really kind of just do what he wants in terms of stopping the run. And I believe that will end this thing for now, and I bid you adieu until next time.